literally by Epstein and other people. But I think it's time now for the country to maybe get onto something else.
Now is the time for Congress to act. Epstein was not alone. I call on Congress to provide the women who have been victimized by Epstein with a public hearing specifically centered around the survivors. Give these victims their opportunity to testify under oath in front of Congress with the power of sworn testimony.
The First Lady yesterday delivering a very different message yesterday from what we heard from President Trump back in February when he told reporters it's time to move on from the Epstein files.
That sort of came out of nowhere, didn't it?
It seemed to. The surprise, seemingly impromptu appearance by the First Lady was just part of a barrage of bad news for the president throughout the day. Iran says the Strait of Hormuz remains closed, and it is demanding tolls for ships that pass through. That move is in response to Israel launching deadly strikes on Lebanon, which Iran maintains violated terms of the ceasefire agreement.
And those deadly strikes continued through the night.
Here at home, new data released yesterday showed the U.S. economy grew at a slower pace in the fourth quarter than previously estimated, and there is more. Let's though start with the Melania news. Let's bring in the co-host of The Weekend and a Washington reporter for MS Now, Jackie Alemany, who did way too early for us. But Jackie, you were working overtime. You spoke with the president right after the First Lady's statement yesterday. What did he tell you?
Yeah, Mika, I gave him a ring quickly before my hit. Not sure if he would pick up or not because he was in the middle of meetings. He did, in fact, pick up. I asked him if he was aware of the substance of Melania Trump's statement prior to her delivering it. He said he didn't know anything about it. It was on the schedule the day before, but it was very cryptically noted. There wasn't any information about what she would be saying. The president, though, did obviously catch what she said after the fact, and before he hung up, he said he was in the middle of a meeting on the war in Iran. He added that she didn't know him, referring to Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, here's more of the First Lady's rare public statement yesterday, and I mean, as we go into the statement, the idea that she did not know him,
and that Trump did not know she was doing this press conference?
and that she had no it was just beyond bizarre, and all of the reporting is that the people that were in the White House briefing room yesterday were just absolutely stunned in part that it came out of nowhere, and secondly that she would actually pretend that she didn't know who he was, or that she had no relationship with him, or they had no close relationship with him. Here's more of what she said yesterday.
The lies linking me with the disgraceful Jeffrey Epstein need to end today. I never been friends with Epstein. Donald and I were invited to the same parties as Epstein from time to time, since overlapping in social circles is common in New York City and Palm Beach. To be clear, I never had a relationship with Epstein or his accomplice, Maxwell.
Melania addressed a 2002 email exchange with Maxwell, included in the Epstein files, which she praised a magazine story about Epstein, complimented Maxwell's photo, and signed off, quote, "Love Melania." The First Lady said her email, quote, "cannot be categorized as anything more than a casual correspondence."
That is quite casual. Actually, it's not. Doesn't sound casual. And again, everybody's waiting for another shoe to drop. I don't know if it will or not. But again, the timing of that was so strange, especially bringing up something that obviously the president doesn't want brought up, and calling for hearings. It's just the opposite of what the president has been talking about for months. Now, a few hours after those comments, The president went on what Mediaite described as a Truth Social posting bender. Alex Corson, or EP, said it was like War and Peace without the peace. It was very long, which began with the president lashing out at right-wing podcasters who had criticized him this week over threats to wipe out the Iranian civilization. In a 485-word post, the president went after Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owen, and Alex Jones. The president called them low IQ, nut jobs, and troublemakers. He also called them losers who were just trying to latch onto MAGA for publicity. And the social media rant comes after both Owens and Jones called for the 25th Amendment to be invoked. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who also called for the 25th Amendment to be invoked, defended those podcasters on social media, writing that they all helped to get the president elected, and adding that they didn't change. He did.
All right, so let's bring in senior writer at the Dispatch and a columnist at Bloomberg Opinion, David Drucker. David, we've heard, I think from the far right, there's a call for the 25th Amendment. Some Democrats as well have been messaging that. Also with us, we have Politics Bureau Chief, or maybe we don't, because it just went away. It looks like Jay Martin might be. We have Jay Martin on the road.
You know, Drucker, when Jay Martin's on the road, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
There he is.
We've got fireworks going on there.
It is a fire alarm
Are you okay
issue.
there?
I think he's actually it's a late night disco ball. He takes it around with him wherever he goes. So Jay Martin, we'll get back to you in 1 second. He's got Casey and the Sunshine Band going on behind him. We'll get back to him in 1 second. David Drucker, you know, we do talk an awful lot about the fact that you've got to look at the MAGA base and you got to look at these podcasters. I've got to say that with podcasters that have millions and millions of followers, and a lot of them, most of them voted for Donald Trump. They say especially Megyn Kelly's continued
forceful and really spot on,
compelling concerns about what the president has done regarding Iran, especially the threats. I'm wondering if you're starting to hear any concern from Republicans if we're still where we were a couple of weeks ago, where you have the right-wing podcasters and then you've got everybody else in MAGA world. Where are you right now, now that this seems to have a certain crescendo quality to it?
Yeah, a lot to unpack there, Joe. And by the way, I thought the technical difficulties with Jamar was that he was at some breakfast joint, and I know he was eating. Look,
Yeah.
I think that what's very interesting about the president's tirade, of course, how many times has he gone on one of these benders, is that it's all personal, right? He didn't criticize Owens or Tucker Carlson or Megyn Kelly for stoking anti-Semitism, for being anti-Semitic in Owens' case for sure. It's all because they're angry at him. It's all because they're criticizing him. He's brought figures like this along with him, and he's accommodated their sometimes very outlandish, wacky views, and never said that it wasn't welcome within the party. But when they turn on him, now they're idiots who are not welcome in the party. And I think that's a real important distinction to make. And then you're dealing with the podcasters and their content, which in many cases has been anti-Semitic, has been conspiratorial, but they clearly do speak for a subset of voters who supported the president because they didn't think that he would get the U.S. involved in a conflict like this in the Middle East. And so then we look at the politics of this and we wonder, after a month plus, right, we're just about to close out week 6, have things begun to change at all politically? And I don't think that things have really changed politically vis-a-vis support for the war among Republican voters, right? I still think the president has the broad support of Republican voters, and particularly voters who self-identify as MAGA. But I think one of the things we're learning is that voters that self-identify as MAGA aren't necessarily the podcast listener that were so crucial to the president's reelection in 2024. These are people that really sort of joined up with the right because they took issue with the Biden administration, they took issue with how COVID was handled, and all sorts of reasons. And these are the people that are a little bit, that have, become skeptical of the president's leadership. Ultimately, Republicans are in trouble in 2026 because of underlying economic discontent, and the focus and the investment in the Iran war is just another big example that they're not getting what they want from the president on that front.
Jim Martin, elections are one of the margins. We're in a 50-50 country usually. But man, yeah, that margin's getting a lot bigger when you look at the numbers of people that listen to Joe Rogan, who's definitely been harshly critical of the president's immigration policies in Iran. Megyn Kelly, who day after day after day not only questions what Donald Trump is doing, but what Fox News is doing. You look at Tucker Carlson, obviously, they all have massive audiences. And again, it's not just when they go live. It's those YouTube views. You look at the numbers of YouTube views of Megyn Kelly, or Joe Rogan, or Tucker Carlson. Those things are massive, and they live out there forever. Talk about the impact this is having.
Joe, the clips move on social media across platforms, and people who otherwise aren't listeners or viewers of those shows do catch 30-second snippets on social, whether it's TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. I know this for a fact from my own family. They're not listening to Rogan, Tucker, or Megyn, but they get fed some of those clips via the algorithm on social media, so their impact is even more outsized because of the nature of today's information ecosystem. Your point about the margins is critical. Both parties in this country, because we have a two-party system, so they got to fold everybody into below those two tents. So both parties are coalition parties. Well, here's what's happening in the Republican Party. The sort of factions on the either extreme of the party. So the Alex Jones on one front, the real, a winner, as they would say, conspiratorial types, are dissatisfied with Trump because of the Iran decision. All right. Then you got the other extreme of the party, which is the pre-Trump party. Never liked him in the first place. Finds his conduct really embarrassing, but basically had sort of graded bear because they couldn't vote for Democrats every 4 years in the general. I think he's at risk, Joe, of losing those two factions this fall, in part because they will stay home on one hand, and also some of them will just vote for a Democrat to send a message this fall, and that's a big challenge for the Republican Party. They always have a hard time in midterms these days anyways getting their folks out when Trump's not on top of the ticket, and when you add to that this dissatisfaction with those two wings, polar opposite wings of the party, boy, that leaves a lot of people that they need, Joe, to your point, because the margins are what drives these elections. If you take out those two factions, Katie barred the door.